Let me ask you a question that my guest today has been asking people for 40 years. What's leaking out of your financial bucket right now? Most people say, I don't know. And that's exactly the problem. Trent Fortner was the first business coach I hired when I began my life insurance business 7 years ago. He helped me lay a foundation for everything I've built since. He spent 4 decades coaching financial professionals all across North America, and he's helped multiple advisors hit 7 figures in income. The power behind Trent's approach is simple. Ask the right question. And the most impactful question Trent ever taught me wasn't even about life insurance. It was a question about the 401k that I'd never heard before, and one that fundamentally changed how I see what most of us think is the smartest thing we can be doing with our money right now. Your retirement plan may not be doing what you think it's doing right now, and this conversation is going to explain why. Trent, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Great to be with you again, and proud of you and the success that you've had and the people that you're influencing. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And, I think one of the best things I ever did in this business, one of the best happenstance, by luck, I ran into a mutual friend and colleague of ours, John Pairings, during a conference. And that was, I think, 7 years ago. And through that friendship and relationship, he introduced me to you. One thing leads to another, and you meet more people and more people. And through you, I've met multiple other people that I still stay in contact with and even do business with. So it's been great. But you've been in this financial industry for 40 years, roughly?
Almost 40 years.
Okay. I'm not going to give away your age, but I don't think you care.
No.
It's pretty rare that somebody stays in an industry for 40 straight years. So what attracted you to it, and why'd you stay?
Well, actually, I was repelled by it originally, and I went to be an accountant right out of school. And my father had a relationship with an advisor that did not go well. And he was telling me all the reasons why you shouldn't have permanent insurance. My dad he was an engineer, so he had a slide rule out and was trying to, do the buy term and invest the difference approach and prove that. And while I was becoming an accountant, I really didn't like being in the back room of offices counting a lot of stuff. That's literally what we're doing. It was an audit side. And I had a cousin, had a friend first who invited me to get in the insurance field, property and casualty insurance with Nationwide. And they also offered life insurance. And I had a cousin who needed some life insurance. I went to meet with them. He was expecting his first child. They didn't live that far from me. And, they had the first child and expecting their second child. And they were 1 block from their home, and they get hit by a drunk driver. It kills him. He didn't buy much life insurance for me, but he did buy, we were able to increase his group term insurance that he had at the time. And this guy was in his early 30s. And it took care of his family for quite some time. But what it did for me was realize the value early on of what death benefit is and the value of protecting future income. And that young people feel they're invincible. I was young at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, those things don't happen to people like us when you're young. And I got to learn a little more, and I was barely making it, Dave. I was following typical planning. I went to a big company, Guardian Life. I became very proficient at their software, which made me a great assistant for other advisors. And so they called me a manager, made me a manager in that agency. I was a disability broker specialist. I was an agent. I was the manager of a brokerage side. And that year, because of a lot of work we did with those two advisors, there's 2 advisors. I had the new agent of the year and the agent of the year in my unit for all of Guardian that year. And so I get this big award, and I'm barely making $30,000 a day. Barely make. So I was a glorified assistant, and I was ready to quit. And I was introduced to a system. In fact, I was introduced to 2 systems at the same time. I'll tell you what they are. I was introduced to Nelson Nash for infinite banking, and I was introduced to the LEAP system at the exact same time. And when I saw the LEAP system and how it organized everyone's financial lives, took them out of this junk drawer method and really explained how money worked, I caught it instantly. And you guys have said many times, I've heard you say it, that Nelson taught a lot, that this process is not taught, it's caught. And I learned that from him. He and I did a lot of seminars for families together. Somebody told me I was in a video with him, but I haven't seen it, but it was one of our workshops that he was doing. It may have been Carlos Lara. He's the president there now. And I introduced Carlos to Nelson. He was one of my advisors. I learned significant information that I knew my clients and the people I would meet needed to hear. And for the first time in my life, I was late 20s, I realized I had something very valuable that was a secret. Why was it a secret? Well, if I'm talking to someone that didn't know this yet, it's a secret to them. And so I had to help them learn the secret to be able to have the most potential in their life and not be controlled by all the institutions and the products that they sell. I had to teach a way because I was now living it. I bought the policies, I bought into the process, and I learned economics. And it was so valuable to me that I couldn't get out. I had some career changes along the way, some rough spots along the way from a couple of things that didn't go my way in a business. And I had to refocus on the principles of everything that we had taught. And fortunately, over the last 19 years, we were able to really produce some great things with other advisors through the coaching program and mastermind group. One, to teach people how to avoid problems, but two, to really enhance the lives of the people they talk about. So somebody asked me, when am I going to retire? I think I retired 15 years ago. If you're able to do what you want with who you want, when you want, I think that's retirement to me. More service.
Yeah, well, you're certainly not slowing down. I mean, when you were coaching me for that year, I think your calendar was booked from the beginning of the day to the end of the day with some kind of coaching appointment, something. Are you still running that kind of crazy schedule?
Yeah, I am. It's very structured, though. I protect my time, but I have a lot more speaking engagements. I've got 3 big events I'm going to speak at main stage in the next 2 months, and I've spoken at 8 this year. So life is fine right now. And then my youngest son is also getting into business. It looks like when his baseball career is over, he is getting his class for pre-licensing this week. So pretty exciting there.
That's great. That's great. And that's definitely something I'm gonna ask you about as we go through this conversation, is how to get your kids involved. But back to like getting started in this industry, you chose life insurance. Like, life insurance is the most maligned segment of the financial industry, selling the most hated on product in all of North America, which is whole life insurance. It sounds like you had a personal reason that you chose that direction, because you could have gone in anyway. Like, Lee also teaches about, investing and all the other parts of the financial system that everybody should have, but you're really focused in on life insurance. Like, why didn't you go get a Series 65 license or something?
Well, I did have one for a little while, and then I resigned it because I didn't see the true value in that. And with 65 and assets under management, at some point you're going to have to look somebody in the eye and say, we're losing your money. It wasn't a good year. One of the things I learned about life insurance is, now I'm going to call it real insurance because it stays there for your entire life. So that's actually insurance. It replaces, in the way I talk about it, it replaces the income that someone would lose during their working years. And then it changes its characteristic. Once you retire and you've built assets, it becomes asset insurance to allow you to create more income from those assets. And with the guarantee that you're going to replace it when life's over. One of the things there's some simple phrases that I've either created or picked up along the way. I've been doing it so long, I don't know what I created, somebody else created. But the one that is so powerful to me is, we all live until we don't. That's a fact for every person. It's not an opinion. We're all going to live until we don't. And if we match a guaranteed contract with a guaranteed event, then that gives us the freedom to live right now. That allows us to reduce the risk on the very same investments that I may have had before having insurance. But because of life insurance, the risk goes down. The ability to turn a non-income producing asset into an income producing asset goes up. It's a guaranteed event, and it always goes up in value.
Yeah, it's not about when are you, if you're going to die, it's when are you going to die. And I think if you ask anybody that, hey, your new car that you just bought, it's guaranteed that while you own this car, you're going to total it. How much do you want to insure this car for? But people don't, they don't think the same about themselves. One of my favorite analogies is, hey, if you had a cash printing machine and it printed $200,000 a year, because that's how much you make, let's say, how much would you want to insure that for? And for how long? So now, why do you think so many people, everybody wants to chase this rate of return? They're all talking about, I'm getting 10 or 12% in the market, and, I got an investment over here doing this, but you bring up protection and it's kind of like, well, I'll get to that someday. Like, why is that? And I think more importantly, how do you get people to recognize the importance of that protection?
Well, I think I'll tell two stories here, maybe a third one. So the first one is a typical planner or salesperson in the financial field come to you with, it's sexy to say, I can get you a high rate of return, and I'll charge you less than anybody else to do it. That's really the only, I've seen the approach that they bring is, we're going to use math to determine what you'll have in the future with a prediction, and we'll get you this rate of return. Well, math will not be impacted by life. Math's not money. Money is severely impacted by life decisions and calamities and all the things that are going to come about: taxes, fees, disability, death, lawsuit, all of these different things. The life insurance and liquid assets that are immediately liquid, that you don't have for rate of return, like CDs, money markets, those type of things, that's a defensive posture. Rate of return is all offense. How fast can we go? There is no rate of return that will outperform a bad defense. There's not one. If you look at athletes, and you're a pilot, right? So correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm not a pilot, but when you go to fly a plane, safety and redundancy is extremely important.
Absolutely.
You have checklists. You're going to make sure everything is, you checked off all of the processes, and if there is an error or something going on, a calamity, a risk that occurs, then you're going to fall back to your best training and your safest approaches to land this plane safely. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or to escape a plane that you know is going to crash, right?
You want your landings to equal your takeoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's another way of saying safety of the flight is the most important thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
We also learned that when flying planes, that a lot of us may think that a plane has the most power when it's got the most fuel. It may be the most efficient when it's half full, and when you have a tailwind versus a headwind. But you got to have wind to get lift, right? That's the extent of my pilot language and experience.
Yeah.
But what I know about this is our financial life is the same thing. We still send people to the moon and into space, like this big race on who's going to do the best to get us in space right now. But you know what? They're still putting seatbelts on those astronauts in that rocket. They are still having backup systems here to help get them out there, have enough fuel, get refueled out there, and come back. Again, our financial life is the same way. We're managing money for as long as we live. There's going to be a lot of things that could attack it. And if we don't love our money, if we don't protect it the right way, that's not the love of money, but love on our money, then there's no way it's going to take care of you later. If you don't have strong defensive positions that allow you to determine how and when to take income, whether it is taxable or less taxable, whether it is a risk or no risk, whether it could be tax-free. It depends on the mechanisms, the pieces that you have put in your financial life. And some are more powerful than others, but life insurance real life insurance, whole life insurance, does more than one job at the same time. It's the only financial product. Real estate might be second. It's the only financial product that does more than one job at the same time. What are the jobs? Well, it's an accumulation tool. It is an income tool. And it's happening at the same time. If you're putting money in a retirement plan or in building a stock portfolio and compounding all your money, it's only doing one job at a time. You're putting it in and you're waiting for it to perform. And some of them have further restrictions on them that say you can't get the money out before a certain period of time. And if you do, you get penalized and taxed and those kind of things. What I tell the clients and the advisors I coach first, but their clients, is my job. I have a very simple job when I'm involved in these conversations. I teach economic principles and I design strategies using the models that I teach. But it's really two jobs. My job is to help them keep more of what they earn and then earn more on what they keep with certainty. That last part's important, certainty. When we do that for our clients, it's a no-fail business, and it's no-fail for them either, because we built such a powerful safety and redundancy program in that even if one thing goes wrong, their plan still works. Typical plans, if one thing goes wrong, man, everything blows up. It's over.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs and a lot of, this has to go right for everything to work out like you plan. So what I know you're really good at is asking questions. In fact, I dug this up, this old printout, $1 million questions. I still have it in my desk drawer right here. And I go through it occasionally to refresh my mind on some of these questions. And I love them because they're questions that give people pause. One of the things, I'd like to get your opinion on the 401k, qualified plans, right? And which is what most people do. In my experience, most people are putting money in a 401k and putting money into the walls of their house by paying their mortgage off. So hope to have a paid off house and a multi-million-dollar 401k by the time they hit that arbitrary age of 65. What questions should somebody be asking about their 401k or their qualified plan that they probably never even considered before?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's several. That was a good question you just asked, by the way. So one of the things I've learned in my practice to go along with this is it's not really the power in what we communicate to people. It's not really in what we tell them. It's in getting us both to think through what the options are. And the more powerful the question, the better the outcome. That's also true with AI. You only get a powerful answer when you ask a powerful question.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, huh?
That's right. So one of those questions I have a lot of questions around qualified plans with every person. So number one, what's the primary reason for doing it? Most of the time, the answer I get is because I'm going to save income taxes. And now, if you haven't tested that, then you would believe that. But that's technically not true at all. You don't save any income taxes. You actually will pay more even if the rates don't go up. And I'm going to tell you what that means. So today, let's say I get paid $1. And I could take that dollar in cash, and I might have to pay 20 cents in tax, 30 cents in tax. So I would get to keep 80 and the government gets 20. But today I know what the tax is, right? Now I can take my 80 cents and I can go put it wherever I want and give it any job I want. And I could do that multiple times over the next 30 years, create several assets. If I saw something better than what I had, I have the freedom to move. I could buy things that get me tax deductions now when I know my taxes are. If I take that dollar and say, I don't want that dollar today, I'm going to take that dollar 30 years from now, but I'm going to put it in this plan. So now my dollar goes in a plan and it's going to earn a rate of return for the next 30 years. Well, I still have a partner because I have to pay taxes when I convert that statement to an income. If the tax rate did not change, if it was the same 20 cents 30 years later as it is today, I'm going to pay more in income taxes because the government now participated in my growth. Now I'm guaranteeing to pay them more. That's one thing. But what if tax rates change because I have a lot more money? What a lot of people choose to do is to not take their money. They take as little as possible. They take required minimum distributions. And why do they do it? So they won't pay the whole tax right now. Well, they still end up paying more in taxes because it remains in a portfolio that's earning more and even taking less money, which is also a tax. Because now you're not enjoying life to the potential. You're choosing to have a lesser life.
So it's a lifestyle tax.
Lifestyle tax. That's good.
Yeah.
And then if you die with the money in there, then you transfer that money to to your spouse, with your spouse still here, and then to the next generation. And at the moment, they're required to take that over 10 years. So if they receive a big pile of money and they already have incomes, and they receive this new money puts pressure on all their other income, causes everything to have more income tax. If I'm going to leave something to someone, I would rather leave it to them where they're not penalized with additional taxes. Maybe they could get it tax-free. So that's a question, where do you think taxes are going to go? Doesn't really matter the answer. The next question would be, well, if you got too sick or hurt to work and could not continue to work beyond 6 months, maybe ever, do you have anything in writing that will continue your contributions? Or does your retirement plan get disabled when you do? And most of them it does. When people get disabled and they can't go back to work, they then start paying down their retirement plan because they need it now for care. So do you have, if you could get the words to do that, where you could continue contributions to your life, if you got disabled, would you want it? So we would look at that. Has the government ever changed the rules? The answer is yes, they have several times. The question is, did I forfeit the ability to have any control when I put the money in there? Well, it's a government sponsored, that's why it's got letters on the number 401k, it's part of the tax code. I am agreeing to a contract that says they control it all. I take all the risk. I take the risk of going to work. I take the risk of earning the money. I take the risk on the investments I choose. And then they're not going to tell me what they want until the end. I don't think you would want to go into business with me that way. But that's what we're doing there.
Yeah. When you pose it like that and kind of take that same exact situation of the qualified plan or the 401k, and you bring it back to a completely different situation and say, I got a business proposition for you. I'm going to be your partner, but you're going to do all the work, take all the risk, and put all the earnings over here. And when you want it back, I'm going to tell you how much I get to keep.
That's right.
Before you get what's left for you.
I don't like that.
It sounds insane.
It does.
Right? That somebody would do that. So now you pointed all that out, but what's, the other option is really what you and I spend a lot of time educating people on, which is the benefits of properly structured whole life insurance. So take all those negatives you just said, and how do those turn into how does whole life insurance solve those negatives?
Well, there's a few things. So first of all, if life insurance is so powerful, you can't just write a check for it. You got to qualify with your wealth and your health. So if they qualify for permanent insurance, whole life insurance, if they change, instead of putting their deposit into their qualified plan, if they put that same deposit into a whole life contract, depending on how they built the policy, all of that deposit may qualify to be covered by what's called disability waiver or premium clause in the contract. That's a contractual guarantee by the insurance company that says if you're disabled before retirement age, they will actually fund your premium for you as if you did all the way until whatever the contract says, age 60, 65, life for some of them. And that will either be on all of the premium or part of the premium. So some companies, the way you build it, you can get the paid up additions covered and some don't. But that's up to the consumer, which one they would like to choose. Another thing that happens is when the money goes into the policy, we'll call it the equity position of a cash value insurance, you can access the money without liquidating it, with no penalties and with no taxes. So you could borrow against it to go create another asset outside of it. I like doing that for real estate purchases. I've done that and business purchases. I've done that many times over my 40 years or longer than that since I've owned them. So what I see there is now I can create multiple assets. So what if, and this is one of my own. So instead of, I'll give you a quick example. I bought a home in a rental property, not an expensive home. This was a very inexpensive home. It was $42,000. This was 8 years ago. And the guy that was telling me about it as a property manager, he's also a client of my son's through this program. And he said, Trent, we have a property. Would you be interested in buying it? It's only $42,000. I said, I don't know. Why would I want it? He said, well, it pays good rent. It's $840. It's $8,400 a year. So that's 20% rate of return on $42,000. So like $725 a month. He said, they've been there for 5 years. They're not going anywhere. I said, cash on cash, if I put my own cash to buy the property, from my savings, $42,000 in there, it costs me $42,000 to produce an $8,400 income. but I knew about leverage. So I accessed my cash value. I called the insurance company, said I would like to have a loan of $42,000. They didn't ask me what I needed it for. I didn't have to go through a qualification period. I didn't have to get permission. They said, how do you want it? And how soon do you want it? So that was on a Friday, and on Monday afternoon, I had a direct deposit in my checking account for the $42,000. So what I did was I wrote my check from my checking account, bought the house, closed quickly, and then I replaced it by getting a loan against my policy. Now, when my tenants paid their rent of $8,400 a year, what we learned was the interest when I did that was 4% on my policy loan. So that's $1,680. That means my money stayed in the contract. My money stayed in savings. The insurance company gave me the money to buy the house. So it cost me $1,680 to produce an $8,400 income instead of $42,000. Well, that's like a 500% return.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that in my 401k. And it's not a taxable 500% return. The whole thing's not taxable. In fact, in that one, we didn't get depreciation because we paid cash up front, but we did multiple properties that way. It took 3 years and 6 months and 39 days. So 7 months and 9 days to pay off that loan against it just from the income of the tenants and the dividends. 2 weeks after I paid that off, and then the guy that sold me the property, he didn't know that because I pay cash for it right up front. He says, Trent, we have another property 2 streets over. This one's a little more expensive, not as high a rate of return. Rent's higher because the property's higher. But I'm telling you this story because you can build all this out. He wants $70,000 for a pastor that's been on a mission trip for 2 years. He doesn't want any more. He's going to move to Knoxville, Tennessee, build a house. I said, okay, tell him I can close in 3 hours because I have access to cash quickly. I said, but I need 3 comps to make sure that's the right price. We got 3 quick comps within 3 hours. $65,000 was the right price. He agreed. Again, I wrote a check for it. And then again on Friday, because we closed on a Friday, I asked for my loan. And on Tuesday morning, this time instead of Monday afternoon, it was Tuesday morning, I got all of my money sent back to me via loan from the policy. But now I have 2 properties paying rent, paying down that. So that took 26 months to pay that one off.
Wow.
I have 9 properties right now doing the similar thing. And they range from that price up to $500,000 or more that we've done this with. But I'm just telling you, if I did that in my 401k, I don't have those options. And if I don't pay it back in a 401k, you can borrow from, not against, but from your 401k, but there's rules. You have to pay it back in 1 to 5 years or it's a distribution. That's penalty and tax.
You just said from and against. That's a huge difference, which I think a lot of people miss.
Yeah.
When you borrow from, you interrupt the compounding. You can no longer grow that money where it was. But when you borrow against, I always compare it to, like, what does Jeff Bezos do when he wants to go buy a new super yacht? You think he sells $30 million worth of shares of Amazon and pays taxes on a $30 million income and loses those shares forever? No way. He's borrowing against those shares, using the shares as collateral, taking a tax-free loan, buy that yacht, pay it back with some other asset he's got or appreciation of shares. I don't know. But he gets to keep the asset and he gets to buy another asset. Maybe a yacht could be an asset. I don't know. Yeah. I'm sure it could if you buy it right. But yeah, no, I'd love that. That's just the power of getting that uninterrupted compound growth and having control. The fact that you can close on a property in a matter of days versus, 30 to 45 days, a month and a half with a bank and all the other paperwork you got to go through. I mean, that's huge.
Let me tell you one other thing about a story about life. This is a real life story as well. In my mastermind group, I have an advisor from Canada. His name's Scott. You probably have met Scott. Scott is using this principle, the infinite banking concept as well. Rules are a little bit different in Canada than they are US, but they found a way to make them equal. When I met Scott 10 years ago, he was not using any of this. He was your typical advisor working on investments and securities and trying to help people get a higher rate of return. And he learned the principles of what we teach, saw advantage of it, bought his own policies. 3 years ago, his daughter was diagnosed with cancer. They didn't know that at first. She's a rugby player. I mean, supremely in great shape, strong. She had pain in her neck. They went and did an exam, found a tumor in her neck, had to have a very special surgery, had to have it fast because when they took the biopsy, it accelerated the growth of the tumor. Scott had $400,000 in his cash value. The surgery cost $250,000. If he didn't have the $250,000, he would have had to wait for 3 or 4 weeks to even book an appointment that would be 6 months later. They were watching her die in front of themselves. He's telling the story right now. Because he had access to that, he was able to get her the treatment that was necessary to save her life. She's now in her 3rd year of being in remission. They found another spot, went really quick this time, really took great care of her quickly. But because he had that life insurance, he is certain that that extended her life because they had quick access. Could they have had quick access if it was in cash? Yes, but who's going to keep that in cash and have to pay taxes on the interest? He had tax-free, accessible money that he got in his bank within 24 hours to pay for that. Those are the kind of stories that people need to know that goes beyond just protection. Speed of implementation is huge, and life insurance provides one of those access.
Yeah, and it's the unknowns, like the things you can't see if you don't have it. You know, if like opportunities present themselves when you're well capitalized. If you don't have it, you're not going to have those opportunities. So yeah, there's so many unknowns. Hey everybody, quick break here because I want to tell you about another podcast that I've been running for over 4 years now with my podcast partner, Paul Fougere. It's called the Wealth Warehouse Podcast. We're 2 military veterans talking about how to control your capital just like the banks. If you want to deep dive into the infinite banking concept and learn how to control your capital like the banks, give every dollar more than one job, and create a legacy for your family, the Wealth Warehouse Podcast is a show you're going to want to listen to. So check it out. You can find it on every platform, including the one you're listening to right now. Now back to the show. That's an amazing story. You got how many people are you currently coaching? How many advisors?
In my current mastermind, which is our group program, I have 74 people in that right now. In my one-on-one, I have 17 right now. I never go over 18 for a 6-month period of time, so I can give them enough attention.
Okay.
But over the last 19 years, it's been almost 3,000 people.
Okay. So what do you? Now, I know when I went through the program, and maybe things have changed, things always evolve, but there's always some foundation there. It was learning the right questions to ask, how to relate to somebody, how to kind of meet them at where they are. But it also had a lot to do with just changing the way I thought about myself and my abilities, maybe, and building that confidence. So how does that, how do you see that when somebody comes to your program? What do you work on most? Just the tactical, or do you find most people need some kind of, more mental reinforcement, more ways to create that new identity of who they actually are?
Oh, excellent question. So one, I don't think any of us are going to outperform our own identity, how we see ourselves. So one of the first things we all have to recognize is how valuable the services and the wisdom you have available to your clients. And you mentioned this early on, and I'm going to expound on this a little bit. You're talking about all the relationships we have. Well, to me, the most valuable currency we have is relationship capital. And so when someone comes to work with me, I have a large resource of great friends in this industry, been around for a long time, leaders in the industry that you guys have access to because of our relationship. So we want them to lean into us to borrow our experience and our wisdom and our relationships so they don't feel alone out there when they first start, or they don't have the confidence of, I haven't proven myself yet, or when I met you, you hadn't been doing this business that long, but you were a policyholder already. So you understood that faction, and you were way ahead of the game already when we met. But part of moving forward is you got to understand what your value is to the people you're talking to. The next thing is you really need to talk to the people who are ready to hear your value. You got to ask questions to identify problems. I see a lot of people go out because of marketing and other things that they go out and they really oversell what the product can do. And it can do probably everything they say, but they're trying to create a problem to match the solution they presented first. You can't solve a problem that doesn't exist. So if I'm working with you, I want to help you discover with your prospect, or if you're my prospect, I want you to discover, do you have problems? And if we do you want them solved? Because you can fight as hard as you want to keep them, right? But you got to know what it's going to cost you to keep the problems that you have versus making a few simple adjustments to either treat the symptom, like a financial doctor. You might come in and treat the symptom and erase the pain or mitigate the pain, or you treat the problem. You eliminate altogether. Or the other option is you do nothing and you keep all the problems. You keep your known chaos. You're comfortable with that. So what I have to help each person do is determine what's the value you're going to deliver. How do you ask questions that create really for you and the client a no-fail approach together? Because the agreement is we're going to help you improve your financial life. We're going to find every way we can do that. We're first going to start with where money's getting away from you, where you forfeited control, liquidity, where you're overpaying taxes, fees, interest, something like that. And we want to help you bring that back to create more wealth with first instead of losing. And then if you want to make additional contributions, deposits, whatever, then you'll be so excited about it that you'll find a way to do it. And then when we're going to talk to the client, you, the advisor, because that's who my client is. If I'm talking to you and we're looking at your practice, one of the things that I see really messed up with people is they don't have a real system. They wing it all the time. So we're going to work on building a consistent approach and system with a very structured calendar, because most advisors, especially when they're, I'll say, younger to the business, they work all the time. There's no boundaries between taking care of what's important to them, themselves, their family, faith, family, and fitness.
Yep.
Then finance. And so we want to build boundaries that you stick to protect your mental health, your physical health, and your financial health, so that you can be stronger spiritually as well. And so we're going to talk about what do you believe, what is important on who you approach. It doesn't make a lot of sense to talk to people who are not ready to talk to you, or you don't get energized by, or you don't energize them. I call those people ideal prospective clients. It's better for both parties. When you're both more energized, more creative, more focused on enhancing the life of the other person, then we get great results. If you're talking to, I'll make this, if you're talking to a negative Nelly who's going to argue and negotiate everything, that's probably not the right person for you. You want somebody who wants results and was willing to put the time in to study to make sure it's right for them.
Yeah, no, 100%. I remember, one client comes to mind, and the first conversation I had, I remember the notes I took on him was, this person's completely cynical. This is not for them. Then they called me again, and then a third time, and I actually had 3 calls with them, and they became a client. But it's still that same behavior is there every time we talk. It's negative. It's cynical. It's, maybe this isn't as great as, I thought it was, or something like that. So, I don't think everybody, you can't change your spots all the time.
No,
but
I would add to that, Dave, that, skepticism is okay. I love for people to bring their skepticism, because I would ask you what has to happen for you to no longer be skeptical. And so if you tell me that what those answers are, which means something has to be proven, or you have to come to a point where you understand where the benefit is for you, I'm good with that. The cynicism is a little difficult to manage for sure. But you said something that's, I don't know if you even meant to say it this way, but it is absolutely vital in this industry for policyholders, for clients. So, well, I guess this isn't as good as I thought. It's only as good as your imagination will allow it to be, because you are your best asset. What you're going to do is protect your best asset, your resources, your vision, your imagination, so that when opportunity exists, and Nelson Nash said this, so you don't have to go look for opportunity. Opportunity finds cash. And so if you have a reservoir of funds that you have created for opportunity, then you're prepared when it comes. And so the chaos is limited. So if you're saying, well, I'm not getting 10, 12, 15% on my life insurance, well, then you're not applying it in other areas. Because literally, a life insurance, an internal rate of return might be 3% on cash value, might be. But because of external forces, we can drive up the rate of return from 3 to 8 to 18 over your lifetime. It depends on the value of the assets you create. You have mentioned this before. Walt Disney borrowed against his policies to create Disneyland. What a return that is. We're still calculating that.
Yeah,
he's not even here, right?
Yeah.
J.C. Penney, McDonald's, Ray Kroc. I mean, all of these people have understood something. Warren Buffett uses something that's called the float in his conversation to his stockholders, Berkshire Hathaway. And that's the difference between the time that dollars are invested into Berkshire Hathaway Insurance Company and the time that a claim is made against the reserves. So during that time is where they access all their funds to create more resources. That's exactly what we're teaching.
Yeah. Yeah. And to go back to your story about buying all the rental properties and to drive that home, the only real cost to you, it wasn't the $42,000 to buy that property because that wasn't your money. The only cost to you was the interest you had to pay on that $42,000 to borrow it, while your original $42,000 remained inside the policy, compounding, uninterrupted. So when you talk about increasing ROI, if you look at that and say, well, I only put $1,800 into this investment this year, but it made me $8,000, the ROI, there, you can't compete anywhere else in the world when you borrow against the asset that you have in this, which is the whole life insurance.
That's exactly right. And I was with a CPA this morning on a call with his client, and he thought he was against insurance. I don't know really anyone who's against insurance. I think they're against what they have as a perceived cost of it. That's what they're against. That they have to come out of pocket to make something happen. And most of the time we're working, that's not the case. They don't have to do that. But we calculated a rate of return on the total macroeconomic strategy, and it was based off the tax they now had to pay that they didn't have to pay before. But they had to forfeit a lot more money to go into the plan they were in to get what they thought was a higher rate of return. Turned out not to be. We freed up dollars, paid the tax. So the tax was the investment. That was the only out-of-pocket cost they had that they didn't have before. And that's what created this tremendous return, which we recovered in a deduction somewhere else. But so when you're looking at someone's life holistically, not one product versus another product, but you look at their life holistically, then there are multiple ways. And we talk about velocity of money multiplier effect. That multiplier part is real important. We want to create that throughout a person's lifetime. So when they're in control of these decisions, and Nelson said this too, he said, when you know what's going on, you'll know what to do. And so we want all of our clients, all of your clients, to be in a position to understand how all these pieces work and how you can make them work together, not just individually, how you make them work together.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And what you said there at the beginning reminded me of this quote that I've heard people say is, everybody wants what life insurance can do for them. They just don't want life insurance. And I believe most people have no idea all the living benefits, which maybe that's why they call it life insurance, not death insurance, because as you call it, the only real life insurance being whole life, it'll last one day longer than you. What did you mean? Let's go back to that. What did you mean by that being the only real life insurance?
Well, there's really three types of life insurance. There is term insurance, which covers you for a specified period of time. And that is a gamble of, if I die during this time, then my beneficiaries will receive some amount of money. It's a low premium initially, but my plan is probably to live beyond it. And if I do, then that becomes expensive because I've lost the premiums I paid. I've lost what I could have earned on the premiums had I had them working for me. I lost income from other assets equal to the death benefit that was in place. A lot of people don't get that. But think about this for a minute. Let's say it's term insurance and I'm going to own it from today until, let's say, at age 65, whatever that. I'm 60. I'll be 62 this year. So for me, that would only be 3 more years. But let's say they had a period of time. They're going to pay for those premiums. They're cheap. And you're not going to need it when you get into retirement because your home's paid for, your kids are gone. You hear those stories. And I get there. And while I am alive I'm 64 and 364 days old, my policy's still intact. If I died that day, let's say the death benefit was $2 million and I had $2 million of other assets. On that day, my estate value is $4 million. But on day 366, that when it expired, my value is only $2 million. What other investment, what other savings would I say I, by design, want this to be half as much when I get to this age? That makes no sense. But that's a guarantee if you live. And I think the plan is to live. So the next thing, the other type is called, this real popular today, is called index universal life. Guaranteed universal life was created in 1980 by E.F. Hutton. And it was to mix term insurance with a savings and investment component. Back then it was a savings component, higher interest rate. They would guarantee it for a period of time. And today they sell flexibility, is what it's called, flexible premium universal life. Well, when somebody hears that a payment, a deposit, a premium is flexible, what do?
You pay the lowest amount.
Or they don't pay it at all. That's right. The lowest amount could be zero. And so they'll go for periods of time without paying it, which causes a problem.
Yep.
And in those, you're also transferring the risk from the insurance company to the insured, because most of those do not have an increasing death benefit. So the cash value, this does do what Dave Ramsey said, the cash value disappears because it's part of the death benefit. When he says you don't get your cash back, that's really the policy he's talking about. Then a few years ago, I think it was 9 years ago, they created what's called index universal life. And the thought behind that was to create a higher participation rate in the increase of the stock market's values, or some index of the market's values. You don't get the full participation, but you get some. So if the stock market went up 12, you might get 10 that year. And they put a floor that said you can never go below a 0 rate of return. And for a while there, they said, well, you'll never lose principal because of that. It's guaranteed. Well, that's not true. If you had a year of a 0 in that type of policy because of mortality expense, policy charges, administration charges, you will eat into the principal to pay for those costs. So it's going to go down. The other thing that happens is they change what's called their cap rates. And you got to know about these policies to be able to talk this way. So you got to study these. So cap rates change. Maybe they initially say it's going to be a 12% cap rate and you participate in that. And later, because of performance or company's experience, they lower it to 6. Well, the moment that changes, then the illustration they started with is already bogus. It doesn't work anymore. The other thing, there's a risk with the advisor. Why is there a risk with the advisor? The advisor has to be trained on how to manage the indexes. I've been in this business almost 40 years, and I've seen very few advisors. When I say few, it's less than one hand that I have met, that I have talked to, and I've been to a lot of seminars, who have been trained to effectively manage all of the indexes. Why? Because they're new. They're projecting something 30 years out that has not yet happened. It has never happened because the policies aren't old enough to be able to say we have an experience of that. That scares me. Most of those are likely to lapse or not perform the way that the client wanted to, or people get frustrated and they cancel because it's not doing what they thought. Whole life is the oldest form of life insurance there is. Been around for almost 200 years. Actually, it's been around longer than that. It's been in the U.S. for about 200 years. And when it's utilized through mutual companies, when it first started, it was mutual people. Now it's mutual people or a mutual company. Then their contributions help set up the reserves that pay for the guarantees of the death benefit and the guaranteed cash value. The guarantees in those policies on cash and the performance of cash and on death benefit are so strong, there's nothing else like it. It too is flexible, but you have to build in the flexibility. But if you learn how these work, you would not want to put in as little as possible. You would want to put in as much as possible. Whatever the law allows or the tax code allows and what the insurance company allows. There's a limit to how much you can get. There's a limit to how much you can put in. There's a limit to how much you can put in once. There's a lot of variables in it. So the more you know about it, the better positioned you would be. So in my experience, whole life's the only one that lasts for your whole life.
Hey, everybody, David here. I just want to take a few seconds and introduce you to a community that I'm a co-founder of and I've been a part of for 6 years now. Many of you listening are already members and you know what I'm talking about. I want to introduce you to CoSpark. Real financial strength comes from owning the structures that everybody else pays into. CoSpark is a member-owned commonwealth, a community where your participation builds towards real ownership stake in businesses and assets that are acquired and in capital. Look, I'm a member because I believe in it, but dive in for yourself and check it out. Go to cospark.us. That's COSPARK.us. Now back to the show. Yeah, only one guaranteed, and the premium is going to decrease over time too. If anything, level or decrease. So I'm with you. And again, it goes back to what you said at the beginning is you didn't become a money manager because you didn't ever want to have to call somebody and tell them you lost money or they lost money or you lost their money. I think that's the same thing between whole life insurance and all those other universal life variations is I don't ever want to have to call somebody and say, hey, you got to pay a lot more than you planned on, or by the way, your policy is lapsed. Well, thanks for that insight. There's one thing I want to cover before we wrap it up here. You mentioned your son, Brock, who I know, is he your middle son?
Middle son, that's correct.
Middle son. And he's in the business, he's been in the business as long as I've been in the business, maybe even longer.
10
and
years
he's about 20 years younger than me.
28.
Yeah, but he's crushing. He's almost exactly 20 years younger, but he's crushing it. And he has been for quite some time. And then you mentioned your youngest son is now getting into the business. So as a father of, I got, 7 kids, I got a blended family. I got four boys, 3 girls. I would hope that some of my kids want to join me in my business. Is there anything I can do as a father to affect that?
The answer now I would say is yes. When Brock got in, I was shocked. I did not see Brock getting into this business. I mentioned my youngest son's playing baseball. Brock was playing baseball, and he said the day he decided that he no longer wanted to play in college, he said, Dad, can you teach me to do what you do? Now, I had been doing a lot of coaching calls with you guys in my car, and he's in the back seat, and I'm thinking, or next to me, I'm thinking he's sleeping, he's got his headphones on. He had been listening to our calls, and he had been learning and asking me questions. And he said something to me when I said, Brock, I can teach you how, but you have to do it. I can't do it for you. He said, have I ever not done what you told me to do? Which for him, I could say, that's true. He's always been right on it, did his best. And he's an overachiever, so he puts in more work. He's very committed, very disciplined. So there's a few things that I would do. Number one is you also want to teach those principles, which I didn't do early on to them. I should have, I didn't. You want to teach those principles to them when they're in a place where they can learn. I know you've been doing that in some books you were reading to your kids when they were younger and things you got involved in. That's a great piece. The other thing I think is you need to be able to take them to some events that you go to. I'm going to be leading an event as one of the instructors of 2 instructors in 2 weeks, and he's going, in a month. In 2 weeks, I'm going to Caleb Gibbons' event in Nashville Life Insurance Summit, and he's going to go to that one with me. He's got a lot of his friends. He still has a shot at becoming a professional baseball player. So he's giving that his last season. He got injured this year. And so he's going to go give it his last senior year. He's already graduated. This is graduate year. So he's going back but he's getting his license before he goes. He's already got a lot of friends who say, hey, can I work with you and your family with our money when we get drafted? And there's some that are getting drafted right now. And he knows enough from hearing Brock and hearing me to say, these are some things we should think about. So in preparing, number one, it's all about communication. There's what we think we say, and there's what we actually say, and there's what actually is understood. So we got to find a way to know that you're understanding what we're communicating, come back. Number 2, back to relationship capital. I think the experience of college is not really about what you learn in college, it's about the relationships you make. So you got to be careful about who you're around, right? And because you're going to be the average of the 5 people you're around. When you're in this business, you actually are going to earn the average of your top 20% of your clients. That's what you'll earn from the people that you work with. And so you want to be real careful about who am I best to work with. What they really need to know is when they start a career in this business, that they're creating substantial value that they may not even see for a while. It may come way down the road for them, but these other families will feel it right away. What is different about this industry, or used to be, I can see it now, I couldn't see it back then, is if you're a farmer, you plow your field, you look backwards, you see what you've done. You can work a whole day here in this business and you can't really see what got accomplished unless somebody took advantage of the offer. So you got to be in a position to be able to ask good questions and to be able to talk to anyone, but to especially talk to the ones that energize you and that will lift you up, that are mobile. They're upwardly mobile. And then when I say upwardly, I mean, their potential in life, their income, their relationships, all those things. Not to say one person's better than another person, just the qualities that they take on in their life that would give them more ambition. So that's important. The other thing is they may not like studying now while they're in school, but it changes when you leave. When you are doing something that creates phenomenal value like we're doing in this business, I can't study enough. I wake up without an alarm almost every day around 4 o'clock. Have for the last 8 years, I think. But I'm so ready to get up to learn something new. Don't be fearful to ask someone questions that you don't know the answer to, for fear you won't know the answer to what they might ask you. That's really what I'm saying. Because that's how you learn. I see a lot of advisors, experienced advisors, come to me, coach, and say, man, I can't say that. I may not be able to give them the right answer.
Yeah.
Well, what if that's what you're seeking? What if that's where you start? That's where you learn. Don't be afraid of not knowing the answer. Be afraid of giving them an answer that's not right because you didn't study it. Be afraid of not knowing the answer a year from now. So study time is a lot different now. I study 2 hours every morning before I do anything else. And it's a lot more than just math now, right? It's faith, family, fitness, and finance, all those things. But kids starting early, I would say probably 14, 15, 16 years old to start the mindset of what an entrepreneur can be. Because that's not an employee mentality. There's nothing wrong with being an employee, but it's a different approach. We all need employees. We all need to be an employee at some point. But an entrepreneur is looking for a result. And the only way to get a result is to make an offer to improve somebody's life. And everything else in the world around sales, I hear people say all the time, man, I don't want to be known as a salesperson. That's something you do to somebody. Well, that's completely wrong. A sale is helping someone get what they want. And I think what we do with the systems that we use, I'm certain of this, I should have said I know what we do, is we help people get more of what they want and less of what they don't. And that's the most simplistic approach to having success throughout your whole lifetime. And so if we can find those ways to instill in our kids, here are some principles, use a parable of talents, that it's our responsibility to do more with what we've been blessed with and to create more and share more, then we'll be good stewards of the time and the kids and the people that we have.
Yeah, I love that. So what I'm hearing is they're always listening, even when I think they might not be.
That's right.
They may still be listening and watching. So that's...
And they will remind you when they tell you something that you wish they hadn't heard, but it'll happen.
But yeah, you always know that. I mean, the youngest ones are the worst. They don't, they'll pretend they don't remember anything until they say, 4 weeks ago, you promised to do this for me. And they bring that up and use the P word on you.
Yeah.
Well, you made a promise.
I want to add something. That was a great statement. It's almost like you had a script there and I was blank and you brought this up. But I heard Ed Mylett say one time, and this has stuck with me a long time, that the definition of success is based on the number of days that you keep your promises to yourself. So if your goals for the day are not a goal, but they're a promise, and you keep your promises, how much better will your life be?
Yeah. And I remember you asking me, if you have an appointment on your calendar, are you going to keep it? I say, absolutely. You say, well, why wouldn't you keep an appointment you have with yourself? So I tell you, I still use that structured schedule. I've had to change it up because of other things going on and other businesses that I'm involved in, but it's structured. Man, I know exactly what I'm doing every single day of the week. Friday is the only day that's a little up for grabs, and I keep it that way on purpose. But
Good.
I'd say that structured schedule, like you said, you can build a life and a business without having to work nights and weekends.
That's right.
Now, what I found, Trent, is there's no shortcuts to success when it comes to hard work. You got to put in the hard work to be successful, like in anything you do. But there certainly are, in my experience, shortcuts on how long you have to do that hard work before you start to see the results. And that's by putting yourself around people who've done what you want to do and are at a place that you want to be someday, and surrounding yourself with people who've done more and are doing more than you. And I think that's exactly where I think my success early on, any acceleration of my success came from was doing that, going to you and being around not just you, but everybody else in that group was huge for me. So thank you for everything you've done for me, for all the other guys and gals in the industry. It's been a great help. And who would be a good fit for your program, and where can we learn more about it?
Well, thank you. If you are an advisor or wanting to become an advisor, you can go to my website, and it's just my name, TrentFortner.com. There'll be some information in there. There's an ebook that I recently wrote called What Would It Take? And it's really stories of guys that have been in my coaching program for a while. Their testimonials, what the impact of coaching, like you said today, what did it do for them? And one of those stories might resonate. So they can go to my website. They can look that up. They can, if they want to talk to me or they need an email, or just put in the comments. There's a place they can put their email address in and send me a note, and we'll connect. We'll find out what's going on. I have, I'll just tell you quickly, I got 3 programs that, from the coaching standpoint, there's a group program. It's easy to get into. It's also, I say it's easy to get into, but I have to talk to you to get into it. If you're not a good fit, I'll let you know. And the truth is, for 19 years, I've been turning away about 10 to 12 a month. It's a group that's going to be very open, that's sharing, that's uplifting. If we've got negative Nellies coming, they won't be sticking around. We are there to help the entire group get better in every part of life. And there's been people who have gone, like Scott, who have gone through some tough times, and this family just poured into them. And that's powerful. So the community there's strong. That's relatively inexpensive. That's $2,500 for the whole year. And if you renew the next year, it's whatever the year is. So the renewing people this year was $2,026. And you get every call, whether you're there or not. We have a call almost every Monday. It's not every Monday, but almost every Monday. Sometimes I'm traveling or something comes up, holiday. Then there is a one-on-one program that's for, I would say, we have a few newbies in it. Newbies being less than a year in a business, and they're doing really well. I really think they should go into the group program first. But if I'd done that with you, that wouldn't have happened, right? We wouldn't be working together. So I have a one-on-one program that tuition for 6 months it's 10 times as much. It's $25,000. There's ways to start with a smaller amount and pay it from the increase we create, because we definitely create increases quickly. So it's really a no out-of-pocket cost. That's for 6 months, but you get a one-on-one training program. I talk to you every week for at least an hour. If you need more time, I've made it available. That's why I only take 18 people per 6 months. And that includes the membership in the mastermind. We just did a program. This was the 3rd program, and we only have 3 weeks of this one left. We'll start another one in about 2 months. And it was called the Game Time Accelerator Intensive. I thought it was for new people when I started it. Turned out it was for everybody I had people in this with 20 years experience. It's a daily accountability program. Every morning around 5:00, I write an email. I send that email to you. It's some encouragement for the day. It's It's what to do that day, what to say that day, who to say it to. And then I'm going to ask you 3 questions. 3 questions are, who are you reaching out to for an introductory appointment today? Who are you moving to a strategy session to improve their life and ask them to become a member of your practice or client? And then who are you being referred to today? Who are you asking for referrals? And their requirement is to send that to me that morning, and then that evening to respond, this is what my results of those promises were. But we tell them what to say, who to say it to. And there's all those questions you pulled up a while ago. That's one of the documents. Well, we take 3 or 4 of those questions that day and say, these are the type of people that need to hear this question. Pre-retirees, post-retirees, whatever that is, to help them advance their life. We've gotten phenomenal results out of that program. I was really surprised. I think the tuition on that was $6,000. It was a 60-day window of time. It's my 11th iteration of that program. I've called it different things, done it for longer periods, shorter periods. This is the sweet spot, the one we're on right now, 60 days. And in those 60 days, everyone who does the challenge, who does it daily, those are important. This is doing business. What I've learned is about 80% about 20% will do every challenge every day and report every day. So 80% won't. But of that other 80%, about 60% of those people will do most of it. But everyone in the group, even those that don't participate every day, have reported in every one of the programs. This is the 11th time I've done it. More referrals, more income, more appointments, and much more focus on what they're really supposed to do in this business to help people. So to me, that's a successful program. And I just happened to have done this. This is the first time I've done this, but I gave that group that did that, I gave them, who were not in the game time coaching program, gave them full credit to go to the next one if they want to do it with a discount, to take action before my next 6-month program starts, which it just started. So that was exciting. And really, when I started that day, I wasn't sure how that was going to go over, because people don't like being told what to do, especially independent people. But since it's a suggestion, what I've also learned is in our life, as we get more, I'll say more successful, more productive, probably a better way of saying that, in our lives, we have fewer people to be accountable to. And if you're independent in your own business, you're always right and you're always wrong, but you got to find out which one it is. And when you're in a community like this with a daily accountability, it's one of the fastest ways in the world to create growth for you and for your clients, because you have a daily agenda. You were in the service and you had orders. If somebody gave you an order, would you refuse the order?
Not unless it was unethical or illegal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Same here. You are your commander. I am here to give you the suggestions for the order of the day, but you have to command yourself on what to do. So this program has worked. Probably one of my best programs for everybody involved. But if they go to my website, ask me about it, I'll be glad to talk to them. And I thank you for making that.
Yeah, you bet. Accountability is huge. So I think, we all got to be accountable to somebody, or else, human nature could take over and you just do what you want.
And that won't work.
Yeah.
Not very long.
Nope.
I will say, man, I'm super proud of what you've created beyond just this business, but the entrepreneur spirit and the people that you're impacting and the businesses that you've created. I'm watching, I'm participating in some of these to a small degree. I'd like to do more, and may do more in a lot of ways, but I'm super excited for you and the people that you mentioned, John Pairings as well. Great relationships, great results, and I love the way you're taking care of people. So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you. Thanks, Trent.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for being here, and we'll have to have you on again in the future.
I look forward to it. I hope you have a great week.
Thanks. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please share it with somebody you know and hit the subscribe button. And if you're looking for more resources on finances, on entrepreneurship, or leadership, check out davidbefort.com. Thanks for listening.